Hey guys, Edgar here, Guns for Everyone. Have you ever been at the range and wonder what the fuck you're doing at the range, other than you know that you're there to shoot? We get that, but one of the things that happened with me early on in my training was sitting at the range shooting guns, and then wondering like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Like I don't have any knowledge. I don't have any experience. I went to a concealed carry class, and again, I just made this video. Concealed carry classes are not training. Our concealed carry classes, the ones that you do to check off a box, government box, to meet a government requirement, is not training. So plenty of times I was at the range and I wondered, what the fuck am I doing? What am I supposed to do? I don't know shit about the shooting stuff, but I'm shooting, and this is what the industry says is training: is just go to the range and do random shit based off of your own knowledge, and don't listen to anyone else. And I know some people push the training aspect of it. You should get training, but like nobody actually says what the fuck to do other than just do random shit that makes no fucking sense. And one of the things that we have to understand in training is the body's natural reactions, and that's what I want to talk about today: is the body's natural reactions. You probably already guessed it from the title, unless I give it a clickbait title, in which case wait till the end to learn about the stuff that is on the title. But the body's natural reactions is one of the things that we should take into account. The body's natural reactions is just that: it's going to happen naturally, instinctively. Your body, your brain is in code with DNA. It's in code with stuff that it's going to do whether you like it or not. Some stuff is sympathetic. We have videos on that in this same series when we talk about neuroscience, the limbic system, and all that shit, the lizard brain. We have plenty of videos on that stuff, and plenty of videos exist on the internet to talk about that stuff. So I don't want to focus on the limbic system as much as I want to talk about the body's natural reactions, and how it can affect your training, and what to look for, and how to incorporate the automatic with the automated. So let's talk about that shit. One of the So this right here is one of the things that we share in our classes. So hopefully it makes sense to you: is the terminology, the physiology, the survival positive. Now, the survival positive is in the natural world, the natural survival positive. One of the things that we must understand is that guns are not natural. It's not a natural thing. It's something that came about much longer than we became a species. So it's the natural survival positive, and then the effects on training, how it affects our training. So the grass reflex is the very first one. It's just what it sounds like, right? You grip an object. So if you have an object in your hand, say your wallet, and you get startled, you tend to grab it more. I know in the movies and the shows, it shows it that you throw it up. That's not really what happens. You tend to grip it a lot more, and that's so you hold on to the important stuff. If you have a child and an animal attacks you, a dog attacks you, you're not gonna throw the fucking kid. You're gonna hold it tighter. When you fall, you want to grab onto shit. So sometimes we have to emphasize, if you drop a knife, don't try and grab it, because that's what we tend to do. Is we something slips out of our hand and we want to grasp it even more. And that stuff we can see in like this video right here. In this video, shooting happened. I don't want to talk about strategy and tactics and shit like that. Not a fan of using videos to talk about that type of shit, mostly because of the accusation of cherry picking the videos and shit like that. And um, there's a lot more nuance that these videos need a lot of the time. This one I just want to show because the shooting happens, right? Pew pew, yay, and then look what happens with his left hand. He had something in his hand. So he didn't have a gun in his hand right here. No gun in the hand. He had things in his hand though. And then all of a sudden, towards the end, um, right about here, again, when the shooting ends, he ends up dropping whatever the fuck was in his hand. Also, if you ever meet Pincus, Rob Pincus is he hates flip flops because he says you'll never be able to defend yourself in flip flops. Show him this video. Ta-da, motherfucker, flip flops. He did just fine. He did just fine with that shit. But that's one example of the grasp reflex. That's one example of the grasp reflex. And obviously, we can share some other videos like this right here. So this one is just I'm not gonna actually click on the videos, but it's people getting scared. So like this one right here, let's take that off. Um, she's got a cell phone in her hand. She got scared. She didn't throw it. You see the hands, the way they kind of move up in the line of stimulus. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. Hands up, phone in her hand. These videos right here too kind of show about the same people getting startled with stuff in their hands. It doesn't happen. Let's see this one, a few more, and I understand that you get it, but I just want to have a little bit more variety. What the fuck? I, I don't think this one is hand something in her hand. She didn't toss it. She didn't throw it. She continued clutching it. She kicked the shit out of someone. Phone in her hand. She doesn't toss it. So you get the point, right? I think you understand the point. So that's the grass reflex. So why does that matter in self defense? Well, our finger placement. We keep our finger somewhere other than the trigger until you're ready to shoot. There's plenty of videos that exist online. You know what the fuck I'm talking about. My finger somewhere other than the trigger till I'm ready to shoot. Up high off of the trigger, outside of the trigger guard, whatever it is you say. That's why we keep our finger there. The lower center of gravity. The lower center of gravity. You've seen some of those videos there where people get startled, even if it's just a micro flinch, even if it's a micro startle, your body tends to lower its center of gravity. So we tend to bend our knees and close our hips a little bit, and that's because we're preparing for movement. Our body is preparing for movement. Why does this matter in training? Well, it dictates the natural and neutral stance. One of the things that people push back on a lot is the standing squared up to the target. We get a lot of people who say, "Well, I feel more comfortable standing bladed," and it's bullshit because 9 out of 10 times when I'm having that conversation about people feeling more comfortable bladed, they're not standing bladed; they're standing square up because that's how humans stand. If you go to a cookout, if you go to a party and people are talking, you will see them squaring up to each other. They don't stand bladed. So why? Because that's the way we naturally and neutrally stand. Um, when we get startled, again, when we get scared, the church video kind of shows this a little bit better to a certain degree. This human right here, that guy right here, he probably shows it the most exaggerated version of it, but he shows a version of that startled the lower center of gravity. He hears a gunshot. When he hears a gunshot, like right about here, you will see him lowering that center of gravity. In fact, most humans here did basically the same thing. They do it at slightly different times. Some of them barely do it. Some of them do it a lot. I think the guy that says Jesus words here probably does it the most exaggerated. Notice his hands come up protectively as well, but his stance was more of a natural neutral stance, and it's consistent with his walking. Right, he ended up that way because he was walking. He didn't actually blade his body up. He did it this way only because of his walking. Boom. If we move the video right here, this is Jack Wilson. This is the guy that ends up killing the bad guy. He's about to do that right now. But if we notice his body too, boom, lowers his center of gravity. He knows the shooting's going to happen. He's seen the shotgun. He's seen the altercation. In fact, he's ready to draw his gun. He's in the process of drawing his gun, but he hears the gunshot, and his body does the lizard brain thing, and he lowers his center of gravity. It's silly when people believe that, oh no, I already know what the fuck's gonna happen, so I don't do it. You may not do it as much, but people still do it a little bit. I mean, again, the guy, this guy that shot the bad guy, still does it. So be mindful about that stuff. Is when you're training, We want a natural neutral stance, but we also want to incorporate that lowered center of gravity. We want to incorporate that lower center of gravity and that shoulders and bending the knees, closing the hips. That type of stuff. That you're preparing for movement. That's the survival positive. Even in shooting, you're preparing for that fight or flight. So that's why we have to incorporate that. You also face the stimulus, or you orient towards the threat, right? If some shit goes bam, you kind of look in that direction because you want to know what the fuck is going on. So you face the threat, and the survival positive there is easy. You're trying to collect information about the bad guy, and you want to defend yourself from that stuff. So collection of information and defense. It's really difficult for you to know what the fuck is going on if you don't turn and look. It could have been something just falling. It could be something that doesn't need to get shot. This is the problem with people with timers. I know we talk about that shit. That's consistently. We talk shit about people with timers, and that's because they're conditioning themselves that every time they hear a stimulus, that their reaction is draw a gun, and your brain is going to want to process that information, right? If we go back to this video, if we go to like right about here. Now, again, everybody does it in slightly varying states. You see them looking at the guy that says Jesus words, and then they hear the shooting, and then they face in that direction. Some of them already heard the boom, already kind of knew about the bad guy. You need to know the whole backstory to this to really fully understand. This motherfucker is just sleeping. It takes him it takes him a while to wake up. He's like, oh, what? And he still faces. When he wakes up, one of the very first thing he does is he faces in that direction because he's about to uh, uh, he's about to witness a death, unfortunately. And as he gets up, he still faces in that direction. You can see that right about here. Look at this. Boom. He faces in that direction very briefly, and then he hides. This is what the body does. So incorporate that into your training. Maybe don't face the stimulus. Maybe don't face the target. Look at your phone, right? Look at your cell phone, do the stuff, and then fucking oh shit, get startled. Also look at the target before you shoot it. Don't just extend your gun out. Whoa, look at that. Don't just extend your gun out without knowing what the fuck you're going to shoot. So orient towards the threat. Orient towards the threat. Collection of information. Plan to be square to the target. If you look at most shootings, that's what the body does. It's squared to the target. Terminology: move hands towards stimulus. Something over here happens. My hands move protectively towards the stimulus. We see that a lot in those scary videos, right? Let's go back to the scary videos over here. This one right here. Well, we seen the lady kick the individual. This right here. Yeah. I encourage you guys to go watch these videos. There's a lot of good stuff here, but you will see a lot of the hands moving in the direction of the stimulus. When people get scared, hands towards the stimulus. That was a weak scare. That's a dog, so I don't know how the fuck that's gonna work. Anyways, go check this out. That's the problem about doing this show without fucking presetting stuff, and I don't like to. I don't want to set shit up so it doesn't look staged. I'm okay with the natural shit that's going on here. Trying to navigate this as it happens. A hand moved up towards the stimulus. So if you notice, again, she was doing the launder, whatever the fuck she was doing there, and hands moved towards protectively towards the stimulus. This one was the one. Um, ah. So, again, move hand towards still has hands move protectively before learned responses, and that's one of the things that again we get a pushback on is bringing your hands up. As you notice there, the hands are moving up, usually in the direction of that stimulus, trying to protect yourself. Fuck, there's one video I have that is not a shooting. Again, I don't like to share my videos as much, only because it gives it this. Is this the one? No, it's not the carjacking. Oh, it's this restaurant one. Uh, this restaurant one, you see him, his hands moving protectively in the line of the stimulus. And that's probably a better way of saying it, to be honest with you, is in the line of the stimulus instead of saying towards the stimulus. I think that's what we have anyways, is move hand towards stimulus. No, it's probably more in the line of the stimulus. If you notice that last video, he pointed a gun and the guy moved his hands in the line of stimulus. I think that's a better way of saying it. I think we need to change that. Protects important structures, right? That guy had a gun pointed at his face, and his body doesn't really, his lizard brain doesn't understand. His high brain does, his cortex does understand that that's a gun, but right now it's his lizard brain, so his lizard brain is just like, his fucking hand's not going to do anything, but his lizard brain doesn't understand it. His lizard brain just protect the fucking face, the important structures. So we protect, even if it's something that we can't protect against. You see that when people are getting ran over, that they try and stop the car. It's just like, what the fuck are you gonna do? Stop the car? Not really, but we try anyways because the lizard brain's trying it. So add motion prior to learned responses when appropriate. And again, this goes back to before I go to my gun, I'm gonna get startled, lower my center of gravity, hands come up. If my target is in that direction, then I'm probably gonna move in that direction and then grab the gun. So I'm adding this motion before. I know it looks silly. I know it looks dumb, and it can potentially look silly or dumb, but it's kind of the way to go. You know what? We actually have this. If you go to, we now have a Reddit, a subreddit, because we wanted to be stupid. Check it out. One of the videos that I posted was this one right here, and that encourage you guys to go check it out. But if you notice the difference in the way that Rob Latham shoots, the way that Rob Latham, fantastic defense. I'm sorry, competitive shooter, amazing competitive shooter, but not a defensive shooter. So if we look at the way he starts is boom, boom. Oh, even him, he did a little bit of the shoulder shrug. Now, if you watch Pincus, who's a defensive shooter, and he teaches defensive stuff, look at the way he gets to his gun. Ah, he did a more competition style there. Oh, because he's playing the game. So the purpose of this, the worlds collide, is to test out the self defense side and the competition side, and then kind of compare them. So that's what the fuck they're doing here. So let's look at the defensive version of it now. I think is what they're doing here. Uh, yeah, now they're going towards the defensive side of it. Yeah, defensive. Boom. Look at the way Rob Latham does it. And then here in a little bit, we'll see the way Pincus does it. And there's a lot of words. Really good video if you haven't seen this video. Uh, Here we go with the Rob one. And now he's going to do it in the defensive side. He's just walking around, not paying attention to targets, doing it as boom. You see that? That's the movement that we're kind of looking for, even in training. Is the timer went off? He used that as a stimulus. Hands came up, boom, he did the shoulder thing, he faced the stimulus, hands came up. And that's what we're talking about in training as well. You're going to look fucking silly, I promise you. You're going to look a little fucking silly, but you should add that. Move hand towards stimulus, hands move protectively before learn responses, protects important structures, add motion prior to learn responses when appropriate. There's no absolute, so that's why it's most of this, it's when appropriate. You should incorporate this stuff, like you really should. It doesn't mean it's going to happen 100% in real life stuff, but you should get that muscle memory and when you're at the range. Now, this is internal stuff, so I don't have videos about this. You can go read up on it and study this in neuroscience. But increased visual acuity to the center of field of vision, plain and simple, tunnel vision. We shy away from saying tunnel vision as much as possible because people think it's a bad thing, but it's actually a positive thing. We have cones and rods in our eyes. You got to go check that shit out. We have cones and rods in our eyes. Visual receptors in the eye have increased capabilities. The cones, the ones that are responsible for RGB, red, green, blue, are the ones that enhance the adrenaline through chemicals, start to communicate with the rest of your body. It adds proteins to certain areas. It increases blood flow, decreases blood flow, or shunts blood flow to certain areas. And one of the places where that happens is your eyes. We lose peripheral vision, and that's because your rods. Go study this. Your rods start to lose a little bit of the energy that goes to it, and it focuses more on the center of the eye. The rods are also responsible primarily for black and gray, or I'm sorry, black and white, the grayscale stuff. So the cones is really what increases. So there's a increased visual acuity to the center of field of vision. And obviously, the survival positive there is there's more information gathered about the threat. We're receiving more information about the threat. The threat, not the description of the threat, right? Not are they wearing a blue shirt, red shirt? No, about the actual threat. Like, are they stabbing me? Are they shooting me? We're gathering more information about the bad guy. And the thing that we do on training is we keep our eyes on the threat until negated. So in our classes, in our live fire stuff, it's you pew pew, 3, 4, 5 shots. Never standardize that stuff. Never create a pattern. Handgun comes back to the high compressed ready. Once I'm here at the chest at a high compressed ready with the firearm, then I start to look at other stuff. I verify that the bad guy was no longer a bad guy, and I did that when I went from this position to the high center chest. Once I went to the high center chest, then I started to look around. But between my gun and shooting the bad guy and bringing the gun back to the ready position, I'm still looking at the bad guy. I'm still verifying that motherfucker ran off, that motherfucker died, collapsed, fell to the ground, or surrendered. One of those, and then I start to look around for the other stuff. But I'm keeping my eyes on the threat until negated. Tachypsychia. I have a whole video on tachypsychia. Go check that shit out. But it's basically the perception of the distortion of time. You perceive time to move fast or to move slow. A lot of people will in an incident or after an incident, they'll say, "Wow, that happened so fast." And some people will say, "Oh my God, I felt like I was going in slow motion." In fact, in the video that I made about tachypsychia, the guy was a firefighter, and he talked about how he's seen everybody around him moving slowly, and he was getting frustrated because he thought everybody was moving in slow motion, and that's just not the way it happens. The survival positive is you're receiving more information for instinctive and learned responses. So your brain does this. There's an inconsistent activity in various parts of the brain. Again, go watch that video. I don't get into it too in depth, but give you basics about it. But you're receiving more information. The brain is giving itself a boost so it can make decisions about movements. More information for the instinctive movements and learned responses. But it also means that you cannot rely on visual information. That's the fucked up thing for the execution of learned responses. In that video, in the tachypsychia video, I show a cop. I think I did. I show a cop having a malfunction, and he looks at the gun, and he doesn't know what the fuck to do. So it takes him a while to clear that malfunction. Well, if you're looking at your gun and you feel like you're going too fast or too slow, you may rush it if you feel like you're going too slow. You may slow it down if you feel like you're going too fast. So we shouldn't be looking at the gun in any way, shape, or form. Proprioception is another reason why we don't look at it. And then there's reduced blood flow to the extremities. Again, the adrenaline, your thalamus and your hypothalamus communicate with the rest of your body. It regulates, sends information, but it also regulates chemicals within your body. One of those chemicals that it regulates is the adrenaline, epinephrine. The epinephrine sends chemicals to the rest of your body in form of proteins and amino acids and shit like that. It's a very interesting subject. I encourage you guys to go check that shit out. But the thing that it also does is it will retard blood flow to certain areas, shunt it, blood flow to certain areas. Blood is shunted from hands and forearms. Obviously, the survival positive there is if you do get injured in these areas, you're less likely to bleed out in those areas. But the problem is we need to avoid finer motor skills. Now, everything you do with your hand, technically, if you talk to somebody who specializes in this type of shit, they will tell you anything you do with your hand is technically a fine motor skill. So you got to get away from this idea that I can't use fine motor skills because that's the usage of your hands. If you really consider your shoulder, boom, rotates like 360 degrees. I can rotate this motherfucker all kinds of ways. Anything from my elbow, pew, there we go. My elbow only moves in one direction. That's it. Like if I want to rotate that shit, it really involves my shoulder more than anything else. The hand kind of the same way as the fingers. They're it's a fine motor stuff. So we're avoiding finer motor skills whenever possible. The argument is, well, if I can't use fine motor skills or finer motor skills, how do I release the magazine? And that's it. It's just whenever possible. This is why we don't encourage people to use the slide lock as a slide release. That type of shit, right? So we're avoiding finer motor skills and using grosser motor skills as much as we possibly can, understanding that we can't always avoid that shit. So I don't know if this is translating in video. As I sit here, I'm wondering if this is even fucking making sense. And I do this stuff, and I'm trying to show you in this way, and not at a range. One, noise, weather conditions, all that shit. I can control all kinds of shit here, noise level. Um, I don't have to worry about the weather and shit like that. But I'm wondering if it translates as well. So hopefully this shit makes sense. This is just an idea. Like I said at the beginning, is um I would go to the range, and I see people go to the range all the time and they say I went to the range, and cool, but like a musician doesn't learn music all by themselves. They don't just sit in a fucking room and or go to Guitar Center and start fucking strumming shit and fucking playing stuff. No, like somebody needs to teach them. A lot of the times we go to the range and we don't know what the fuck we're doing, how we're doing it. So like I hope this kind of helps. Like this is what the body's actually going to do. So I need to know that I keep my finger off the trigger till I'm ready to shoot because of the grasp reflex. I need to lower my center of gravity, bend my knees, close my hips, because I'm preparing for movement in a shooting. So I hope you're kind of, I hope I'm communicating this properly. I'm hoping that it all makes sense to you guys. But these are some of the body's natural reactions. There's a fuck ton more body's natural reactions, but these are the ones that we see in empirical evidence, observed evidence, the ones that come up the most. This is what comes up the most, and it affects the way we train. But at any rate, before I start rambling too much, hope that was helpful. Go watch some of the other videos that we have. Tell your friends about this. Do the belly stuff. Do all that shit. One of the ways that we can continue the free concealed carry classes is by creating this content and you sharing it and us being able to monetize it. If we can monetize it, then we can use that money and use it for the concealed carry classes. Obviously, this is really low budget shit, there's not a lot of production value to this. So the money would go to the free concealed carry classes. But without you sharing it, without you telling your friends about it, without you liking this, that type of stuff, we can't do that. As you can see right now, there's no sponsors, there's no any of that shit, and we may keep it that way, or we may deal with sponsors a little bit differently. But that helps. That will help if we ever get to that point. That will help the way we're able to continue the free concealed carry classes. So yeah, tell your friends, do all the silly shit that most YouTube people say. Hopefully it makes sense. Let me know if it does in the comments, if it makes sense or not. My brain is fucking weird as fuck, so it's all over the place. I can't stick to a structure or anything like that. So, anyways, let me know if it all made sense, if it's helpful, and all that shit. So, see you next video.